Shooting it raw?
Yes. Shooting it raw.
Photography is, wow, I have collections of pictures. It's family, it's memories, it's actually triggers now for writing. I see a story and I'll think, that's what kids were doing then. That's what I was doing then. Yeah, I guess it's memories, it's stories, it's recording of my family and the world around me.
Everybody answers it a little bit differently. Jane Baird, how shall I say your full name?
Jane's fine. Jane Baird Warren. I was born with a very long last name, which I changed when I married, and Baird is the only thing left of my pre-married name.
Oh, okay. Well, Jane, nice to meet you. Thank you for joining me.
Nice to meet you also.
Okay, so you mentioned before I hit record that you did your grad school in BC?
Yeah, I did. At UBC. I did an MFA. They had an optional residency program, and I was living in Europe at the time, so we did a lot of the classes online, but then we could opt to go there and have a residency in the summer where you'd meet other students and you'd meet your profs, and it was good.
Okay, and where are you in the world now?
I am currently in the Eastern Townships in Quebec.
Oh, you're in Quebec. Oh, represent. I'm from Montreal.
Oh, get out. Really?
Yeah, if you want that. Okay, we'll do the rest of the podcast like this, like good Montrealers.
I'm afraid I'd have to do it with a slightly Dutch accent. My French is niet zo good.
Hit me with the Dutch.
Het is gezellig. Hoe gaat het met jou? I'm not Dutch, but I lived there for a long time.
Nice. So you feel, you're getting a sense of the energy of the podcast. So it's just going to be fun. Thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, thanks for the invite. I think this is going to be great. I loved your premise, the 4 pictures.
Oh, okay.
Cool.
Thank you. Okay, so let's dive into the first photo. Okay. This is great. Oh, I love it.
Part of my life.
No, it's so great. Okay, so it's a photo. Oh, that's funny.
There's someone at the door. Someone will get it. Don't worry.
Okay, great. It's a photo of a photograph. Is the photo in an album? You made a photo of a photo in an album?
My sister, who owns the photograph, made the photo for me. It's also on my website because, again,
nice.
Pretty much a metaphor, just about everything.
Oh, wow. Okay, so the photo's crazy. Okay, it's black and white. It's almost a square format. One girl is kind of, wow, this is great. One girl, I mean, the girl, she looks like about 7 or 8, maybe. Her legs are hooked over what is probably, you don't see the bar, but there's like it could be a balance bar or some kind of chin-up bar or something. And then she's holding the hand of of a girl. I assume it's a girl. It's blurred. The photo is blurred. All you see are the feet and the knees and the shins and the knees and a bit of the thigh and then a bit of and this is all blurred. And the girl who's upside down is holding the hand of a girl who's essentially face planting onto the ground, who probably peeled off a swing.
Okay, you got it. And you can tell it's a very old photograph because I think it has the ruffly edges. Mm-hmm. The older girl is got to be early teens, actually. She's a petite. She's my sister. And we're swinging on a trapeze. And I am the one falling off doing the face plant on the ground below.
What? Dude. Oh, man.
I have no memory of this. Maybe a concussion. The photograph is firmly lodged in my mind. It's been a family discussion point for years and years. We had a really cool family. So my dad came from overseas, and he was super athletic. And my older sister was kind of like this incredible athlete all through her life. And I aspired to be that, but never quite rose to her level. But he built this trapeze out in the backyard. And we were supposed to play on this trapeze. He also put a trapeze in the basement hanging from the ceiling. He collected elastics. I don't know how long he collected them for, but he made a rubber ball out of elastics that was about 2 feet in diameter, which we would walk on across the basement. And then one
Oh
of them,
wow.
a unicycle. And we were like a little circus act downstairs, like the Flying Melinda Brothers. Yeah.
Your dad sounds amazing. Like he sounds like nutty, but he sounds great.
It was cool. It was really cool.
Oh wow. Starting off with a bang, pun
Literally.
intended. Uh, your sister's older than you.
Yes, she's almost 9 years older.
Okay. And at the time you were how old?
You know what? I don't know, but I'm looking at the picture thinking maybe 5 or 6.
I have to stop myself from giggling and laughing because this photograph is so good. It's like so like I mean, hopefully, like, okay, people have to go to the website. They have to go to the YouTube to actually see the image because, man, this is such a good photo. And how old you at the time? You were how old again? Sorry.
Let's say 5. I think that's a pretty benchmark average. It could have been 4, could have been 6.
Did you break anything?
I don't think I've ever broken anything, but
Oh
I'm
wow.
sure I had a good sanding on my face. My dad would do things like this. The family story goes is he grew up in Norway, but he was there during the Nazi occupation in World War II and escaped, stolen, this all sounds very dramatic, stolen Nazi boat and rode his way over to Sweden. He was from Oslo. I worked in a kitchen, but he was athletic and he would do crazy things like this is a nice restaurant, fancy restaurant. And he would go up in his hands and he'd walk around the kitchen with the chefs and he'd freak out the head chef that he was going to knock stuff over. But he could just
Huh.
walk on his hands like people would walk on their feet. So when we were kids, we would all be told to go up on our hands. And my older sister could do it really well, but I would walk up and into a back bend and up again because I just didn't have the strength he did. But he was, that was just part of our training.
Amazing. Amazing. I love that I get to meet people like you. Oh. So do you have other siblings?
Yeah, so I have the sister who's about 9 years older, 9 years older, and then one who is 7 years younger. So essentially, I was an only child,
Ah,
like sandwiched in the middle. I didn't get to know either of them. By the time the older sister was in college, I was just starting to pay attention to my surroundings, and I was selfish, self-involved, and didn't pay any attention to my younger sister. So we weren't close as kids, but we're getting to know each other as getting on in age adults.
nice. Okay, so you're this says amazing things about you because I invite you onto the podcast, choose the images, frame the conversation. Jane, is this how you normally make an entrance?
Well, I may not make the entrance that way, but I sure fall on my face a lot. So there you go. Metaphor for life.
Well, you sound like your dad.
I am. I will try just about anything, and I jumped out of planes. I've crawled through caves. I parasailed. I've done all that sort of stuff. Getting less brave as the years go on, and I don't take no for an answer very well.
Nice.
Case in point, when just before I was turning 30, I had this sort of midlife crisis. I thought, holy crap, I'm getting old. And I'm wiping bums and noses and washing and waxing kitchen floors. And I have 6 years of university. I've got to get out and do something. And I thought, what do I want to do? Big question. I want to write stories. I want to write books. Didn't happen that quickly, but I did get motivated enough to sign up for university. And so this is germane because you send in a portfolio. I got chosen for a Poetry 500 class, but only because this delightful woman called Aretha Van Herk said, you have to accept this woman in your class. But the fellow who was teaching it, fantastic poet, great man, is going through these stacks of portfolios, telling everybody alphabetically why he chose them, why their work was beautiful, why he did it. He got to me, I'm a W, and he's looking at my portfolio and he looks up at me and he says, I don't know why I let you in this class. Okay, challenge accepted. And that's me falling on my face yet again. But I don't mind, which is probably good if you're going to be a writer because rejection is part and parcel of the whole thing.
Oh, okay. So, your first training, you said you're wiping noses and wiping bums and everything. Is this because you're taking care of your kids, or is this because that was your professional?
Nope, I had 2 kids. I was a stay-at-home mom. Yeah.
And your 2 kids, Do they have similar photographs that they can share to their friends?
Do they have, you mean photographs of themselves?
Yeah,
They,
falling face forward in the dirt.
I don't think I'm fast enough reflex wise or lucky enough to get those, but they've had a couple of pretty good crashes. Because we lived all over the world, I'd get this phone call from my son, especially. Well, he went to UBC too. He also went to Neuchâtel in Switzerland, and we'd get this phone. Hey, Mom, it's me. Yeah, hi, how you doing? Oh, fine. Hey, what's our address again? Because we'd move from posting to
Hmm.
posting, and we'd live in a place called Reichstaatsweg or something, Schrijveningen, and and we'd have to spell it for him, and then we'd say, "So, John, where are you asking?" He said, "Well, I'm in the hospital. kind of hurt my shoulder." So these are the kind of things that we get from the kids.
You moved again and again. Was it you're with military or with school
Um,
or?
my husband worked for oil and gas companies and service companies. So we moved overseas first to England with Schlumberger. And then from there, he went to Shell International in The Hague. But
Hmm.
we've been in the UK, in the UAE, in Dubai, and in the Netherlands in two different locations, up north in Horia and in The Hague or Scheveningen.
And supposedly very similar to the Eastern Townships in Quebec.
Well, bureaucracy in the Netherlands and the bureaucracy in Quebec is pretty close.
Ah, Jane. Oh, you're fun. You're awesome. Okay, let's go on to the next photo.
Okay.
I've decided I'm your newest biggest fan because you're amazing. You're awesome. Okay, next photo. So that's you with a hat and the glasses in the background,
Yep.
smiling.
That's me with
Big,
my
beautiful
big
smile.
fish.
So now this image, you're in the back wearing the overalls with the. I guess you can stand in a stream. What's the name of those things again?
Waders.
Waders. Yeah. So you're with waders. You're in a big stream, not a huge stream. It could be New Brunswick for all I know. You're in your fishing gear. You're laughing because somebody who's making the photograph is holding up the quote unquote large fish that you've caught that is probably the size of a finger. So it's not a very big fish. Poor little thing. It looks like it's some kind of salmonid. It looks like it could be some kind of trout.
It is.
What's the story of this photo?
I was just thinking of all the things that I've done that I haven't done well, including falling on my face. Fishing is another thing that I love and I suck at completely, but it's very peaceful. And this is my hometown, Oakville, Ontario. It's where I lived for all the way through high school and grade school. And
Ah,
it's just wading up and trying fly fishing. My girlfriend, when we lived in Calgary, for a birthday present, my girlfriend's husband was a fly fisherman, and he took me fishing with a float down the bow. I was equally unsuccessful, and I really
hmm.
liked it though. It was kind of like if you one day on the river is like I don't know, it's like going for a long weekend somewhere. You really feel rested and relaxed. But I noted he never invited me back on the river. Hip waders and women and fishing is problematic unless there's a lot of tree covers at the side where you can pull off to the side
Right.
and have a comfort break.
What you need is a catheter.
Yeah, I know, no kidding. He's a doctor. He could have done it too, damn it.
Okay, so what are we communicating with the outside world about? I'm assuming you have a wealth of images, and the one like the second one you've picked, one really communicates your playfulness, your energy, your yeah, like you're outside, you're so in the photograph, I should describe it a little bit better. So you're in a stream that's probably about I don't know, maybe about 20 meters wide, not very deep. So it's not a very deep stream. Maybe it's probably about half a meter or a meter deep at the most. It looks like it's almost like a fall day because the colors in the background are kind of beginning to turn. It may have been spring, it may have been summer, but I'd guess that it's beginning to be like maybe end of August, early September ish.
You got it.
Oh, let's see what else can what else can I decode from this? Because in my mind, I think I'm always asking, well, why this, why that. So one is that you're really about communicating your authentic self. It's not. It's just you being fun and unpretentious.
Well, I'm not going to pretend to be successful when I'm not. I'm not going to pretend to be fancy or schmancy when I'm not, because that's kind of hard to keep up. So yeah, this
Yeah.
is and funny. You asked the question, what does photography mean to you? And I'm realizing I have very few pictures of me because I'm the one taking the pictures.
Ah,
So I'm thinking I have no pictures of me hang glide or parasailing, no pictures of me parachuting, nothing. Because if there's a picture to be taken, I'm behind the camera, and I used to love that.
there no photos of you balancing on a big elastic band ball.
Nope, nope. There's some odd photographs, but no, no, none of the ones. But yeah, I think, what does it say about me? Yeah, I will. I'll give it a try. I'll give it a go.
Hmm.
And I am. And I also take an awful lot of swings at bat before I actually make contact, and I'm okay with that.
Okay. Well, you mentioned that you went back to school, right? Is it that
Yeah.
you went back to school, or you went to school for the first time post 30s ish?
Okay. I started off in high school. I had no idea what I wanted to do, and my guidance counselor said I should be in engineering because I was good in math and science. I
Hmm.
actually applied to University of Toronto for aerospace engineering and philosophy and physics, which back then was this Ayn Rand double degree that everybody thought was so cool. I got accepted to both, but didn't go, which I have said a couple of times, is that I probably can credit the Canadarm with its success because I didn't go to aerospace engineering. I'm kind of thinking in a really odd direction, but I did go to Queen's. I lasted 5 months, dropped out, and then I gathered myself together and went to McMaster for a BPE, phys ed. And then
Okay.
I went to University of Calgary for a degree in education.
Hmm.
And then I started to teach, but boom, pregnant kids, babies, transfer to England, and
Mm.
yeah,
And then at some point you thought, well, I'm going to go back to school, and you said, what's it, UBC?
yep, yep, UBC.
Okay. Their creative writing program or a different program?
Creative writing. They offer an optional residency, creative writing. It wasn't the first place I applied to. I applied to Oxford first because I thought, oh, that
Nice.
would be really nice. Plus, it was close. I was living on mainland Europe, and I could just pop over
Hmm.
rather than 10 hours. It would be 1 hour. But
Yep.
I didn't get in, and I sobbed like a teenage girl who had just been dumped. I mean, I was just like,
Aw.
oh, my poor husband didn't know what to do. But then I thought, okay, well, that didn't work. What can I try next? So then I researched, and I knew I wanted an optional ed because I didn't want to live away from home. So
Hmm.
UBC.
Well, so my first degree was in creative writing,
Ah,
and one of the, yeah, look,
from where?
from Concordia. Oh, I should have said Oxford.
Oh,
Damn it, I suck. Concordia. Concordia. Uh, and one of the things about doing a creative writing degree is that you become really aware of how writing and language really is the stuff of thinking. And I could see how getting rejection when you write, it's like a rejection of, it can really hit your ego because it's a rejection of how you think and how you strung words together. And then for a lot of people, they have to kind of unlearn or detach or disentangle their ego from the writing. So if somebody comes and criticizes the writing, you are like, oh, it's like you're hurting my feelings. When it's like, no, 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 they're just criticizing the writing.
so that's funny that you say that because I have no idea why, but I have never had any problems with separating them. It's never been about me. It's been about the writing. So even when Fred said,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why you're in my class, I thought, okay, well, what could I do to be worthy of being in this class? And
Mm.
I have no idea. I'm not really cold. I am probably hypersensitive, but not with writing. I was talking
Mm-hmm.
to a fellow writer today, Barb Jones Scott. She's launching a book out of freehand in just 2 weeks, I guess. It's a fabulous novel. But we were talking about what happens when, for me, it was my agent came back. Which I mean, I thought this latest manuscript I sent her was to die for. I thought it was perfect. It was going to be my breakthrough novel. And she said, well, and she gave me some ideas. She said, what would you try doing it this way? Would you try doing it that way? And you're rolling it. It's like a dog rolling in poop for a while. You just have to let yourself go with the anger and the frustration. But it doesn't take very long. I don't know why for me. And I thought, okay, I don't like her idea, but what she's telling me is that that she has a problem with this particular issue. She's proposed a solution. I don't like her solution, so how can I do it the way I want to do it? For some reason, that's as natural to me as walking on a balance beam. It happens very easily. So, I mean, I'm sad. I did do the big sobbing when Oxford didn't take me, but that was a loss of opportunity, not a personal rejection. So, yeah, I don't know. But you're right that there are, for a lot of people, that's super difficult. I don't know. You've probably been in critique groups, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was in one when literally I'm just talking about the text and it totally collapses a person's psyche. And I wasn't used to that. So I had to learn how to coddle and handle and.
Well, yeah. So I think it depends on your character, what kind of person you are. You know, it'll come more easily than others. So if you're very attached and if you kind of are the kind of person who thinks that little voice in our head is us, and that little voice that speaks the text is us, and that somehow when somebody critiques that, it's like a personal affront. Yeah, like if that's something that you get hung up on, okay. But that's not something that you did. It could be an age, it could be experience, it could be, I don't know.
No, I was pretty young when I was getting rejected first, so I don't know if it was age, but I think I like to become, that whole 10,000 hours thing, you put in 10,000. I like the idea that I'm developing a craft and my voice, like you're talking about that little voice that's really important to you. Absolutely. I have a story I love, but what I want to do is learn how to tell it the very best I can. So I'll take any help I can get. I mean, I might not agree with you or listen to what you have to say, but if you have an idea that I think feeds into what I want to build, I'm there like white on rice. It really, really is important to me to be as good at my craft as I can be.
Okay. So we're just riffing. We're just talking. We're just going whatever. I was watching some show yesterday, and then they had clips of William Shatner. Oh. And William Shatner, the famed Montrealer, blah, 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 or whatever, really kind of funny. And then in his little monologue in some show, TJ Hooker or whatever, he's like, you blah, 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 I'll be on you like white on rice.
I don't even know what that means, but.
Exactly. Exactly. But you just said it.
I did.
Within 24 hours, I've heard that phrase twice.
Must be me and Will, we're both old farts, so what can I say?
Sure. I love it. So it's so consistent to me that on the one hand, you will fearlessly try things. You have a kind of a history, and you've sort of separated the idea of failure or whatever, like rejection or whatever you call it, like falling on your face with, okay, well, just get up, dust yourself off, and try again, or keep going, and sometimes it hurts more than others, and yet that is totally consistent in terms of the physicality, right? Like for example, teaching, being like you're doing physical education and learning about the process of being a physical education teacher and a coach, with sort of dusting yourself off in your 30s and going, well, I'm going to go back to school and I'm going to kind of enter that practice of improving my writing. So how did writing begin with you? Like, where did that originate?
Yeah, so the first time I can remember thinking about it was sitting on a school bus, being bused to school, and opening a notebook and writing a story about twin sisters. And all I can remember about the story is, well, they were going to have adventures because, damn it, girls never had adventures. I'm not a Nancy Drew kind of person from back then, but there were no stories that I thought had fun, exciting girls who were ballsy and took chances. It was always the guys who were doing it, the boys. And I just wanted, even back then.
Pun intended?
No. Freud could have a field day with me, I think, but never mind. But I just sat down and I remember one of the twins' names was Miranda Ann, but you had to call her Randy because she was sporty. And and that was the very first time. And then I played around with it. And then grade 13, because I'm of a generation where in Ontario we still had grade 13.
Yep.
And I remember my English teacher saying, well, what are you going to do? What are you going to be? And I said, well, I'm going to be a writer, but I obviously won't be able to make a living at it, so I'm going to go to engineering.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Wow.
Prescient. I'm pretty sure I couldn't make a living at writing. That was true. The engineering didn't work, but never mind.
Yeah, but all that stuff is it's who you are, and it manifests. And while we're talking about this, there's the photo of you smiling so broadly. Can't see your eyes because of the sunglasses. What with the photographer holding up your catch, which is the small fish, and it's I think like. So the podcast is about really getting into this idea of making every second count and being very present about it. So it's somewhat meditative in a way. I don't know where I'm going with this, but feel free to interject with something.
I like make every second count. So there are times when I don't. I'm not perky all the time. Sometimes I'm happy to just. I'm not I'm not perky all the time, but I have a kid. My daughter is really quite amazing. And she taught me to just say yes. Somebody asks you to do something, say yes. And that opens up possibilities. Yeah, I love that. And that's what she does. That's how she lives her life. And she just says yes to all experiences. So I'm learning from my kids.
How old is your daughter?
I hope she's not listening. 34?
What?
34?
Oh, okay. I thought she was like young. Okay, 34.
No.
Okay.
It's that I can't exactly put a day on the age.
That's awesome. She should be on the podcast too.
She's awesome. She's fantastic. She carves birds. She is an engineer. She made it.
Great. Well, because you said she made it and she's awesome, and I now have my next guest for the podcast, and you're so cute. Let's go on to the next photo, shall we?
Okay. Yep.
What a great ride. I love it.
You're fun.
Boom. Okay. Now look, this is a very different kind of photo. It's a landscape of it looks like a favela. It looks like basically really intense, dense housing taken from a top, maybe from a roof, like say, basically photographing a very, very dense sort of housing area of all these houses together and all roofs going sloping downhill. Behind is this massive slab of could be granite or rock or sandstone. I don't know what it is, but it is. So it's a mix of very, very urban. Then there's a vein of trees. Then there's like the slab of stone, and it's just an interesting juxtaposition. I mean, maybe it's Brazil. I don't know. What am I looking at?
I'm delighted you know what a favela is, because I'm coming up with a lot of walls when I am. What you're looking at is Rosina Favela in Rio. It's the largest favela in all of Brazil. So why is that picture there?
Yeah.
Have you been there? Have you been to Rio?
No, but I think Brazilian Portuguese is amazing. It's just like the sexiest language, and it is. It's so beautiful, and so So no, I haven't been, but do please win me over. What is this?
Well, okay. So as soon as the kids bogged off and went first to Neuchâtel and then off to university, I was pretty much alone at home, and my husband traveled for work a lot. I mean, I was at the Schiphol airport in Amsterdam 2, 3, 4 times a month. I mean, he traveled, and I could go with him. So he was working in Brazil, and I just hopped on the plane with him and explored. So, so the company would give him safety briefings, and they would say what to do and what not to do, and then I would summarily ignore them all. Mm-hmm. And I found somebody who took me on a walking tour of the favela, and there was something about it that just stuck. And then I started reading about it and researching it, and at the time I was playing around with a young adult novel, which was really, it was way not what I started with, but one day I just realized this novel has to open in Rio. It has to open in Leblon, and then it has to go to Racina. And that's what I'm currently working on. So it's a young adult thriller, political thriller that opens in Brazil. So when I was there, though, I met the guy. We went to the favela. It was a small walking tour with a bunch of people, and he's supposed to take you to your hotel when you're done. this is part of the tour. So I come walk to the bus with the rest of the tour guide, and I'm in Baja, and the rest of them are in downtown Rio. And he said, sorry, I really, I can't take you back. We're just too busy. So can you, grab a cab? I don't speak Portuguese, but what I told my kids to do, I kept the hotel card in my pocket so I could just flash it to people. And he dropped me at a taxi stand just at the bottom of the favela. And I thought, this will be interesting. And the buses went by, and did you know those little tiny white buses? Well, you might not. In Rio, they have mini buses. And the only thing that stuck in my head from the safety warning was, don't get in the little white buses. And they looked to me safer because it was smaller. I thought I'd have a better shot at things. But I listened, and it was the same week that the American girl and French girl and American boyfriend, or vice versa, were kidnapped, and they were driven over across the bridge, and so
oh shit,
yeah, kind of do stuff like that. Just kind of
okay,
yeah. But anyway, that all worked out fine. But Rio was so stunningly beautiful, and Racina was so interesting that it just stuck in my head. And now I am living every day as I'm doing my edits in Rio, day after day, day after day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, so let me chime in with my little. I leave Hong Kong, landed Canada, end up in BC, decide to go up the Grouse Grind, which if you visited UBC, you know to go up Grouse, and that day was a holiday, so there were lots of tourists, and there are a lot of Brazilians now in Vancouver, tons of Brazilians. Wait. Each time I say Brazil, the siren goes off. Oh, you're just. Anyways, so I go up Grouse Grind, and then I meet some different people, and one of the people I met was this woman from Rio, who works online, so she works remotely, and so long as she's in the same time zone, she can work anywhere.
Yeah, absolutely.
So she was just like in BC for a little bit, just to experience BC. And she was just telling me about the magical quality of the city. And since you opened that door, and look, as somebody who's experienced who you are, with your life experience and everything, why don't you try to dive into that? Well, what is it about the city, or what is it about the whole essence of it that you think captured your imagination?
That's a good question. I think it's probably the combination of the stunning beauty, the sense of little bit of danger, totally frustrated with the levels of poverty, and then you lay on top of that the political situation, which I understood more when I came back and started researching, and it was just this big, beautiful mess.
Mm-hmm.
So when we arrived in Rio from Amsterdam, it was late at night. I had never heard of a favela. I knew nothing about it. I was just along for the ride. But we're pulling in, we're driving from the airport through the city. We're heading to Baja, which is sort of south of Rio proper, Barra, in case I'm not saying it properly. And I look up and I said, oh my God, that's gorgeous. There was all these twinkly white lights in these, because Rio is very, very hilly. And you've probably seen those opening shots from all the movies with the Christ the Redeemer statue and things like that. It's super hilly. But the favela is, all as the picture shows, lots of little cement boxes, actually, and every one of them has lights on at night. So you look like you're looking in a fairyland, and it just caught my imagination. And I said to the driver, oh, that's gorgeous. Where is that place? Where can I go visit it? And he wouldn't answer me. It was like, oh, no, you can't go there. Then it just got things started imagination-wise. But there's more about Rio, though. It's also part of my childhood. I have family there, but not in Rio, but in Sao Paulo. And when I was 12 or 13, my mother's cousin wrote and said, would you like to send Jane down for the summer? We'll send her down. We'll pay for her way down, and she can come and stay with us.
Wow.
Well, yeah. Oh, wow. But at 13, I was interested in hanging out with my friends. I didn't want to go down to Rio and live with strangers. And so I went, nah. But the next year, I'm in high school, and I'm thinking, oh, this would be cool. And the offer never came again. But that's good. But so it's family, it's beauty. In Rio, I hired a tour guide, like one that would actually take me and show me places. She wanted to show me all the sights in the city, but I wanted to see the forest and the jungle. And so that's what we did. We went, she wasn't really dressed for hiking, but she took us as far in as she could to the wilderness. And as a kid, I mean, the Amazon River, National Geographic, all I
Yeah.
wanted to do was go down the Amazon and look for piranhas and,
Yeah.
anacondas and all those wonderful things. But bucket list still to do.
Nice. Like, so on grouse,
Uh-huh.
the sort of happy accident of meeting those, the people from Brazil and from Mexico. And so we're talking about how there's this perception of it being super dangerous, right? And they're just like, yeah, if you pay attention to the news, it's dangerous. But it's just like, but like, if you go to the library, you're not going to get in danger because it depends where you go. It's like, according to them, it's like if you go to where the hot spots and you find yourself in those circumstances, like you take one of the white minibuses or whatever, then yeah, but
Yeah, but I'm going to say yes and no because if you, again, part of my research, the average Brazilian, according to the research that I've been doing regarding Rio, to be authentic,
mm-hmm.
will pay to have their car bulletproofed. So that
Oh
doesn't
wow,
strike me as safe. Plus, when my
yeah,
kid went to school in Neuchâtel, there was a kid there they were a Canadian kid, but they had been posted in Rio. And I said exactly the same thing. I said, whoa, wow, is that a safe place to live? This is way before I'd gone. And he said, of course it is. I mean, I don't wear my nice jewelry or watches when I'm driving and the car is bulletproof, but it's safe. And I'm thinking, you don't understand the whole meaning of safe. So yeah, I think you get used to things, but I will say that I sort of agree. I was living in the Middle East during 9/11.
yeah. Oh wow,
Everybody I know freaked because they thought I was in grave danger, and I didn't feel like I was in danger. So, and I actually
where in
don't.
the Middle East?
Dubai.
In Dubai, right, Dubai. Okay.
Yeah. So the news was volatile, and my kids are living, they were at boarding school in England, and my husband was traveling all over the world, and he actually got grounded because of 9/11. But we felt that the news, just as you said, escalated the sense of urgency and danger. Or
Mm-hmm.
I really wasn't aware. I was riding my bike places and doing things I probably shouldn't, as per usual.
I don't know. I mean, it's, like, for example, I was born in Jerusalem. I've spent lots of time in Israel.
I want to talk to you about that sometime when we're not doing this.
Well, you can talk to me, whatever. You can talk about anything. This we're
Well,
just talking.
so I'm part of this book that starts in Jerusalem will actually go to Tel Aviv. And I'm not sure
Oh,
if I actually have to go there or not. But anyway, you were born in Jerusalem. Do you know, when I was a kid, my dad said, so he's Norwegian Lutheran, Mom's Church of England, and they just assumed I would be what I was. But my dad was really cool, and he sat me down one day when all my friends were getting, you know, the Catholic Church thing that they have to do at a certain age, communion. But he said, most of the world is not Christian. And I said, oh, really? Because I lived in a little white Anglo-Saxon town in Oakville, Ontario. And he said, before you decide your value system for the rest of your life, you should know what's out there. So he sent me off, I swear to
oh
God,
wow.
to figure out, to study Judaism, Buddhism. And I mean, we didn't have synagogues and mosques in my town, but I had to read. We had a library. And I remember it took me about a month and a half, and I came home and I announced that I was going to become Jewish because that made more sense to me. And my mother, my mother was just, ah! I thought, okay, well, there you go. So I've had this sort of fascination with it for the rest of my life.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, so one of the experiences that I had was I was living on the border between Israel and Lebanon. Literally, I could throw rocks across the road, and then there was the fence, the security fence, and there was
Uh-huh.
the minefield and all this stuff. But I could throw a rock across the border into Lebanon, and
Oh,
at the
wow.
time, Israel was withdrawing forces from Lebanon, from northern Israel, from Lebanese area, and oddly enough, where I was staying felt very safe and secure. It
Yeah.
was quite quiet. It was very rural, very remote. So the sense of safety, like there were times when where I've been in Brooklyn, for example, or your sense of safety. There are areas in Vancouver which are supposedly some of the areas here, like with the tent cities and everything, it's like Vancouver's own favela. Like it's
fair dinkum. Yeah. So how old were you when you left Israel?
Well, the first time when I was 1.
Oh, okay.
My parents, when I left when I was 1, but I've gone back and forth. Like in my 20s, I lived there for a few months, and
really cool. Okay,
sure. Well, enough about me. Let's move on to the next photo. How to be a goldfish. Jane Baird Warren. Oh, I love it. I love it. Okay, so again, like I'm not always sure who I'm going to talk to and what it is. Often sometimes it's authors, sometimes it's researchers, all this stuff. So in this case, it's a image of book cover where the font is kind of handwritten, it's cursive, very kind of playful. How to be a is in just white, but goldfish is in this beautiful sort of spectrum or going from bright gold to kind of rich orange. The sky is purple. It may be a sunrise or a sunset, and there's this constellation of a goldfish, and there are 2 kids and a dog between them, and this is a children's book, a scholastic book, no less. Okay, plug your book, Jane. What is this? Awesome.
So I think the artist was tremendous. Her name is Julie McLaughlin, and the rainbow in there that I didn't even notice the first time I saw it. It's has to do with LGBTQ rights. So in part of it, there's a lot of different things they touch on, but that's one of them. And she made homage to it on the cover, which I just loved. So It is a middle grade book. So let's say grades 4 to 8, 4 to 9. It deals with some difficult themes, but it's kind of playful. I don't think anybody would read it and feel like I'm hitting them over the head with anything. But it's dual narrative. It starts from Lizzie's point of view, and then it goes to David's, and it alternates back and forth. And he's kind of a Star Wars obsessed city kid, and she is in a small town north of Toronto, and she's real comfortable on a farm. And they find each other. I guess I'm going to say together they're going to change everything. They realize that they have some common mutual interest, and these 2 unlikely people band together and they try and fix the problem. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
This whole one-line pitching thing is just not in my comfort zone. I'm going to have to work on that.
No, but let's say you're not. Look, this is not a marketing meeting. This is excellent. This is just a conversation between 2 friends.
Okay. So when this started, I honestly just wanted to do something fun and playful because I'd written a book. I'd written a YA thriller. I got an agent. She couldn't sell it. And I just went, so I left that agent and I started writing this. And it was going to be just fun, playful, kind of Harriet the Spy-ish. And then a certain person got nominated to lead the Republican Party south of the border and then eventually got elected. And I started getting pissy. And it was affecting my thought process. And when they started doing things like south of the border, like saying transgender people couldn't serve in the military and people having great arguments over transgender bathrooms, I thought, what the freaking frack? We've done this 40 years ago. We were all over gays couldn't be in the military. Gays shouldn't marry. They can't marry. They can't adopt. And I thought, have we learned nothing? 40 years from now, what are we going to be saying about the way we as a society behave towards transgender people right now? So there's not one mention of transgender anything in the book. It's just a reflective thing. So what I did was I set the book back in 1981, which hurts my heart, but that makes it historical, and that hurts my heart that 40 years ago is historical, but fair enough.
Yeah.
And the idea is that a kid picking up the book today will look back and see some of the things that a 13-year-old had to deal with 40 years ago and go, oh, that's so weird. Really? People did that? That's so weird. But in the book, the characters look back at their grandparents' lives 40 years earlier and go, holy smokes, you had to deal with that. And some of the things that they had to deal with were forced adoptions. Canada was horrible. I don't know if you know this.
Mm-hmm.
300,000 kids were taken away from their mothers just because they were unmarried and not
Mm-hmm.
considered fit. And sometimes it was done just, you really shouldn't. Sometimes they were actually physically taken. Sometimes it was, how would you say it? They were browbeaten into it. You know, you really
Mm-hmm.
shouldn't. It's not a good home. We need to put the baby in a good home for his best interests. And so there were all these stories of girls finding themselves pregnant and going to visit their aunt or going to a
Mm-hmm.
special home and then coming back later to finish high school. So this is one of the things. The other one, have you ever heard of British home children?
School me.
School me. Okay. So this freaked me out. 10% of Canadians are descended from British home children. So around late 1800s to early 1930s, Britain had a policy of basically, this is, if you were part of this, I'm sorry, but rounding up kids who, they weren't orphans necessarily. In fact, very few of them were. They were just deemed as not being in great homes. Very similar process to having a baby taken away from a single mom. They were put on a boat and sent to Canada, Australia, and New Zealand, where they
Mm.
became either domestic workers or indentured farm workers. And there they had to serve out their time. Some of these
Mm.
kids, very few of them landed in nice situations, but some of them landed in horrible situations. And
Sure.
one of the characters was a British home kid. And as an adult, the grandfather type character. So that shows up, and he also happens to be gay, and he has to hide it because until mid-70s, it was unlawful to be gay. So
Mm-hmm.
that sounds awfully heavy for a middle grade book, but it isn't. It really truly isn't. But I figured this light little mystery, because of good old Mr. Trump, became had a bit of a message at the end.
Mm-hmm. Uh. Okay.
So Nelson Mandela, love Nelson Mandela, love his writing. And he said once, I can't quote it, but I paraphrased it. It said, people aren't born hating. So they have to be taught to hate. And if they can be taught to hate, they can be taught to love. So this is me. This is my mantra. You can, being kind. It's all about being kind. And
Mm-hmm.
so that was.
Um. Okay. So, how to be a goldfish? And so the notion of a goldfish, we can riff on that. So you pick a photo of you catching this one small fish.
Good for you.
You construct this book as a kind of a release valve.
Oh, I like that.
And look, like there's a bit of humorous undertones of making it orange, and like it's Trump being kind of like called various things related to orange, and you it's like, oh, watch out, don't call it thin ice, whatever, who cares. But the act of writing is you have this simmering impulse, and then you kind of sit down, and then it starts taking shape, right? So
Mhm.
why don't you talk about how this, because sometimes a kind of a work or a text kind of evolves into, you'll start writing one kind of book, and then it evolves into being a completely other kind of, it's like, oh wow, this is going to be a nonfiction book, I didn't realize this, or whatever it is, right? So why don't you take us back to that day when you had that motive, where you started writing that first page of what would end up becoming How to Be a Goldfish? Why don't you talk about what was going on in your mind when you sat down?
Wow. I don't think you just sit down to write. Okay, so after having fumbled my way through a thesis novel for grad school, I was going to not be a pantser anymore. I was going to be a plotter. So I plotted out this whole novel, but I found that made it very shallow. So maybe the first thing was sitting down and plotting, but it didn't work. I mean, it was really
Mm-hmm.
cold. And I think it's only through playing and writing drafts and drafts that you get to know your characters and you fall in love with your characters, and then they actually tell you what they're going to do. they can only act a certain way if they're going to continue to act in characters. And as long as I step back and let them behave and not try and play chess with them and move them from A to B, when I do that, it's trite. But if
Mm-hmm.
I let them grow and evolve, then I get people acting. I mean, they change. What they did completely changed when I stopped trying to manipulate them.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole goldfish thing is so Ted Lasso does the goldfish thing, which I think is hilarious, where you know, be a goldfish, just forget the insults that have happened to you because goldfish have short memories. For me, goldfish are these amazing little things. You teeny tiny little things. You can throw them in the lake or the pond, and they will, from a fishbowl to a pond, and they will grow to fit their environment. So undercurrent theme message is that, you know, kids can do a whole lot of stuff, and if you they can grow to fit the situation. They can do things they never dreamed they could do. So
Mm-hmm.
did I know that when I sat down to write? Hell no. I had no idea. It was just, I had a little kid in the classroom. There was a little bullying. She was a little afraid. It was very, very trite and superficial. And maybe I'm just real slow, but it took me a lot of times and a lot of drafts to get them to where they were talking to me.
That makes sense. It's also, I think, for somebody who maybe was thinking about writing, or for somebody who has no interest whatsoever to kind of sit down and write a novel, like this idea that it's actually mind-boggling when you think about it, that by sitting down and just kind of putting words together and just like following the flow of whatever story you're telling, you're all of a sudden discovering or manifesting the qualities of this character, which is kind of like a representation of a person, or this ideal sort of self. Yeah, so it's kind of it's like you're, in a way, it's like the character's telling you, well, this is who I am, and it's kind of.
Yeah. I don't know if you remember The Gargoyle. It was the big Canadian novel by the writer out of Winnipeg, and I'm embarrassed I can't remember his name. But he, at one point, oh, maybe 12 years ago, got the biggest advance for a novel ever.
Mm-hmm.
And this, I heard him interviewed once. He came and talked to us at UBC virtually in Zoom. And he actually said this the first time, and he said, my characters tell me what's going to happen next. And I remember going, oh, that's a little airy-fairy and out there. Because
Yeah.
I wasn't there yet. I hadn't figured it out that it's really a function of getting to know your characters well enough and letting go and letting them tell their story. And yeah, then you have to find the themes in the frame, and you have to make sure you've got the pacing right and all that, but it's still got to be their story. You know, you're not the teacher, you're just a conduit.
Which I think, if you think about it, if you think like, okay, I'm not under the influence of anything. You don't seem to be under the influence of anything. But I think if we were like under the influence of something very heavy, we would be like, because it's
Mind blown.
mind blowing. It is mind blowing.
It is. It is. It's fun. It's also, you creative writing. It's addictive, isn't it? So how many times, I don't know what you're like, but I have quit writing so many times, at least 4 times. Said, I can't do this. This is hard. And then, you know, a couple of days go by, sometimes it's a couple of months, and then you realize, I can't live without it. So live without
Yep.
it. I have to do it. So when you talk about, are you on something? I'm on writing. I am
Right.
full on writing. I love getting up in the morning. I mean, I woke up at 4 this morning going, don't get up, stay in bed till at least 5 before you get up to write. And then I couldn't wait to get upstairs.
I know that feeling.
Yeah, it's great.
It is quite fascinating. The question is it neurotic? Is it neurosis? I don't know.
Oh, I think there's a little ADHD and OCD in my little background, but that's just
Okay.
my own package.
But here's what's also fascinating is that it's like when I tie it back to how you frame the discussion with your dad, in terms of like, or how you put yourself in a plane. Okay, I'm going to jump out, and I totally identify and resonate with this notion of, okay, here's my morning, here's my day, how am I going to spend it? And
Yeah, exactly. Keep going. No, that's exactly right. How do I
no, you have to
get
keep.
the most out of every day? Wouldn't it be a shame to get to the end of your day and just have done absolutely nothing with it? I love, not a to-do list, that sounds kind of anal, but I want to accomplish something by the end of the day. So writing doesn't always fulfill my need to accomplish something. So I have to make things with my hands,
Mm-hmm.
because then you can actually see a product. So I fell into quilting when we moved to the Netherlands, because other than going to coffee and sitting around talking, which I didn't relish doing, there was a class of women that did quilting. So I learned how to quilt, and like everything else, I did it obsessively. And now I've got a machine that's worth more than my car, and that kind of
Okay,
stuff.
okay.
But when I've done my 5 hours at the computer in the morning and done my exercises and done what I need to do, then I think, okay, I need to make something because the writing's not going well today. So I'll go up and sew. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I make these. I think they're really quite nice, but it's fun just to have something to show for your work, because it takes a heck
Sure.
of a long time to hold that book in your hands.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, and in a way, I mean, these are all kind of artifacts, right? So, for example, a book is an artifact of ideas. A quilt is like the artifact of your hands and your thought and your mind,
Yeah.
however we want to put it. Um, so, let's put a bow on this thing. And how can we motivate somebody who's listening, who hears himself in you when you were kind of going, well, I'm just going to sign up to that creative writing program, and I'm just going to take that road. What advice could you give that person? Like, how can you light a fire under their ass to kind of,
I feel like a Nike commercial. Just do it. But no,
yeah,
if you want something, don't be afraid to go after it. I mean, it's scary, because if you want something and you don't get it, then you think you're going to feel worse. And I mean, I don't know if they can see me, but you can see me. I'm no spring chicken. It took me a while to get where I'm going. So back when I first went to school, the guys and gals who were publishing they were rock stars. They were 16 and 20-year-old novelists, and they were the ones.
mm-hmm,
And I was already past the hill at 30, publishing my first short story. But if you want it badly enough, you just keep doing it. And then if you love it enough, so, do what you love, and it's easy to go to work every day. But the other thing that I would say that I have learned is that community is really, really important. Don't be shy to go out and try and meet other people. Here's an example. Somebody contacted me recently. He thought I was the important Jane Warren.
what's that mean?
Oh, there is an absolutely spectacular Jane Warren editor. She's like top flight Canadian editor. She might even have written a few books. And he was cold calling her on an email, and asking about things and wondering about writing. And I answered him back, because I mean, you got to pay it forward. You got to do what you can do. And
Mm-hmm.
we finally figured out after a Zoom call that I was definitely not the person he was hoping to talk to. Right place, right time. This was a guy he's got an MFA in creative writing, Montreal. He's probably super talented, but he couldn't find a community to write with. So I have a literary critique group. We've been together on and off for maybe 10 years. One
Nice.
gal is Palestinian Canadian. She just came back from Abu Dhabi, lives in Wales. The other one is Irish, lives in the Netherlands, and we meet on Zoom or Microsoft Office or something, and we critique each other's work. And I said, well, let's see if the girls will have you join us. So community. He's
Yep.
now part of our writing group.
Awesome.
But I think that you need to reach out. You can't make it a competition. I started off writing literature, short
Mm-hmm.
stories, publishing in literary magazines like Canadian Fiction and Malahat, and I loved it. But I found the community made me nervous and unsure of myself, and I felt it felt judgmental. Even if they weren't judging me, I felt judged. And so
Mm-hmm.
that was part of the quitting and coming back. But when I came back and did graduate school, I was going to write a novel till I met this really cool professor of children's literature, Glenn Hooser. And he was so gentle and he was so nice. And he didn't like what I was writing. I mean, I didn't know what I was doing, but I loved it and I loved him.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, okay, so let's keep going. And he allowed us to build a community among all kids in his class, and we're still together. Yeah. So now I don't have to do any consulting for money right now. So if I find a manuscript that I like and I think the writer's fun to work with, I will do developmental edits for free,
Nice.
because I think community is so important. And I had a hand up. Aretha Van Herk reached down and grabbed me and pulled me out of nothing and gave me a boot in the right direction. And if I can do that for somebody else, I mean, I'm no Aretha Van Herk, but if I can do it for somebody, I will. And I'm,
You are Jane Baird.
I'm Jane
Jane
Baird.
Baird. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the whole point. That's who we are. Like, you have to be who you are. And I love it. I mean, what a great gift to actually sit and talk to you. And thanks. It's amazing how fast these conversations go. How to be a goldfish. Yes, we'll get people to read it. What's the age and where can people get the book?
You should be able to pre-order it now. Any Canadian store. Can't get it in America yet. Right, they'll try and sell world rights when they get to the Frankfurt Book Fair in October. But right now, Chapters Indigo, Amazon, Scholastic. I was actually thrilled. My daughter found it at a bunch of French bookstores too, so you can actually get it in a French language bookstore. Yeah, my way of saying thank you and being excited is, as you know, I live in the Eastern Townships, and there are a small selection of English schools. So I'm going to pony up, and I'm going to donate copies to all the English language schools in the Eastern Townships and as many of the libraries as I can, and donate a bunch of, hey, debut book, here I am. But school visits where I can go and talk to the kids, because I haven't been in the classroom in a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look, Jane, there are two things I want to end with. One, I think, really nice to talk to you. You're great.
Ditto.
Two, I love the fact that you asked your husband to stand off camera so that each time I say your name, the bells chime.
Oh, dear. Can you hear my clock in the background? Oh, dear.
It's fine. It's fine. Thanks so much. Have a great day.
Thanks. It was great to meet you.
Shooting it raw?
Yes. Shooting it raw.